Oni Kabuto were fierce little critters, strong and resilient, especially for mere beetle. And unlike most insects, they were actually kinda cute. It was their coloration, the fact they rarely moved, and their impressive size. It was a popular children's game to catch a kabuto and let them fight with those of other children, and see who won. But what many didn't know was that adults enjoyed the game just as much as the kids did. Their version, however, was much more violent. Whereas the kabuto in the kids' game survived, the Oni kabuto that would battle in the adult arenas fought until one of them stopped moving entirely. However, this was more underground. People didn't openly talk about it, primarily due to the ban on gambling in Inazuma. Sure, you were allowed to bet off some candy, but in these tournaments, real Mora was moved around. And you were at the center of it all. Not only were you running an underground betting ring on these battles, you also were raising your own roided up bugs. It was an honor to find your beetles, and an even greater glory if your bug managed to be defeated. Of course there were losses on your end, but in truth, the bank always wins. Meaning your pockets were always filled to the brim regardless. Plus, it was enough to keep the Tenryou Commission and the Adventurers Guild off your back, through bribes and or hiring Ronin. You leaned back in your lavish chair. Not really a throne, but you did have the highest sitting position. The crowd was, as per usual, not that large, but what your tournaments lacked in people, it didn't lack in Mora. You watched as the current fighting beetles went up against each other. When suddenly there was a small altercation happening in the crowd. Was it a tamer that got upset over that beetle? You dealt with rowdy participants before, but no. This was different. The room was dark, so you could only make out their larger-than-life silhouette. But they were causing a ruckus. To keep your customers, you decided to attend the disturbance yourself. Letting your Ronin deal with something like this would lead to violence that you'd rather see spilled on the arena. You were surprised when, upon leaving your high position to mingle, that your eyes fell upon an Oni. What was he shouting about? He pushed your patrons aside as he looked over the people under him. He was shouting something. You looked at one of your guards. What does this oak tree want? The Ronin grinned. He demands to fight the best fighter, my lady. Well, that would be you. You chuckled. So, everyone wants that. He doesn't have the participation fee. And he refuses to leave. You scratched your chin. A participation fee was required to challenge one of your more skilled bug trainers, depending on their skill level, of course. You pushed further through the people, until you got into earshot. I'm telling you, shouted the Oni. My Oni Kabuto is the bestest in the world. You better let me in. Finally you stood before him. The man towered over you, but you weren't intimidated. If you wanted, you could use your high division to make him drown on his own blood. He was kinda hot though. Sadly, you were already horny. And unintentionally you thought about how much damage he would cause your tiny body if you would allow him. His grin widened upon seeing you. Hey, you look important! Are you the head honcho here? Didn't expect it to be a girl. The crowd groaned around you. They knew to better respect you. These little tournaments you threw were a heavy money sink after all, but if one had such great rewards, well, you are correct. Of course I'm correct! He held out his massive hand for you to shake. Arataki Ito, the numero uno Oni of Inazuma, leader of the Arataki gang. Your hand barely fit into his. And such a powerful grip. You blushed a little, and your legs quivered. Thankfully it wasn't noticeable. Dirty thoughts filled your mind. Well, it had been a few months since last you had lied with someone. I heard about your little tournament, and what happens to the losers. I'm here to stop it. Your eyes fell upon a ronin who was about to draw his sword. You held up your hand to stop him and simply spoke towards the Oni. And how are you planning on doing so? Ito made a dramatic pose. By challenging you, the head honcho, to a battle. If I win, you close down shop. The crowd around you burst out into laughter, while others shouted profanities at the intruder. Well, the crowd doesn't seem to like you, Oni, you said smugly. But if I win? He chuckled. Haha, that's the fun part, you won't! No, you were the one laughing. Oh, I see. It was as if the Archons themselves put this sexy hunk of meat before you to devour. Okay. Let's say you win, you said, pleased. What is stopping me from continuing, even if you win? Well, then I come back and humiliate you again. Humiliation, huh? You thought. You could go for some humiliation. But not for you. You wanted to humiliate him. You raised both arms in excitement and said in complete confidence, Say, friends, we forgo today's schedule for now. You pointed at the Oni with a devilish grin. And we add one more battle onto the menu. The crowd went ecstatic. Of course. You stepped closer to the hunk, bit your lower lip and gently rubbed over his muscles. Once all of today's fights are over, we can dedicate the rest of the night to your challenge. Ito blinked, taken off guard by your advances towards him. He couldn't quite comprehend your actions. Sure. Why was he feeling so bothered all of a sudden? Ito sat down next to you with a scowl, after having demanded to sit on your chair. You had only replied with, I mean, you can, if I can sit on your lap. So he just took a spot on the ground. Due to his size, however, he was still able to watch the fights. Tonight's location for your Oni Kabuto battles were an inn in Inazuma City, more specifically, the basement of it. The innkeeper was a friendly and scarily intelligent dog, who only allowed you to do this if you gave him a month's worth of treats. And if you had closed down shop before the members of the Yashiro Commission showed up in the early morning hours to have their morning tea. Tonight's fights were brutal, to say the least, and Ito couldn't believe his eyes. In his world, Oni Kabuto stopped after throwing their opponents on their back. But watching these bugs fight so viciously. Up until tonight, he didn't even know that Oni Kabuto had purple-colored blood. The sand pit where the fights were taking place was covered in it. Scattered pieces of chitin and torn wings adorned the sand. The money came in steady, and the waitresses were getting great tips. Overall, it probably was one of your best nights yet. Eventually, the crowd got quiet, however, as the hour of truth came. Ito's buck versus yours. You had kept this one secret for a long time. A secret weapon, hidden under a blanket beneath your chair. The people around you gasped, while Ito's eyes widened. Using both hands, you put the monstrosity down into the pit. It was a turtle-sized bug, so heavy it made you huff and almost order one of your Ronin to place it in the arena. Its horn was beautifully polished, and its chitinous husk was so dark it almost appeared black. It hissed, not like a regular Onikabuto, but more like a vicious mountain spider. I present to you the Shogun Executioner. The people went wild. It had taken you years to breed this bug. You were so proud of it. Angrily, it opened its wings to let out an aggressive rumble. Well, while it is impressive, you tried to suppress a chuckle. Something like the Shogun Executioner could only be bred by human hand. But it will never defeat my bug. From a small cage on Ito's back, he placed a somewhat big Onikabuto into the ring. It looked pretty normal, but had slightly bluish hues on its thorax. Despite its prettiness, however, it had no chance against your bug. After the paper wall separating the bugs had been lifted, the two creatures charged each other. However, due to the size of the Shogun Executioner, Ito's bug was quite literally trampled. The Oni put a hand over his mouth in horror, as the Executioner immediately turned around, put his horn under the other, and threw it on its back. And then it approached, raised its mandibles, and finished the fight. It had only taken 10 seconds for Ito to lose. The audience was almost disappointed, if it wasn't for your rare specimen. Instantly you were approached. Some begged you to breed a similar-sized bug for them. Others just wanted to straight up buy your prized possession. But you brushed all of them aside, as you placed your Onikabuto back into his box. The crowd soon dispersed. After all, the event was over. And you made clear you'd never, ever sell the Shogun Executioner to anyone. He was priceless. You approached the defeated Oni who was still standing before the sandpit. Well, seems I won. You gloated. He grumbled something. I'm coming back, and next time I challenge you, I will be victorious. You chuckled darkly. Yes, but there's still the issue of payment. He looked at you angrily. You went closer to him and crossed your arms. I propose another challenge. You inhaled quietly. He smelled like dirt and sweat. His musk was intoxicating. I'm listening, he growled. You're a virgin, aren't you? I can smell it. You asked straight up. He shrugged. I don't even know what you're talking about. What is virgin? You raised an eyebrow. Well, that means you still have it. You smirked. You put both hands on his massive chest and leaned towards his ear. I challenge you. The conditions are simple. You grinned. We are going to spar with each other. But my way. Don't worry. You gently licked his earlobe, making him shudder. You'll enjoy it. I promise. He exhaled through his mouth. To win, you simply have to make me pass out. Before you lose your precious virginity. He took a step back, and he proudly slapped his chest. I'll win for sure. You bit your lower lip, knowing full well that you had already won this challenge. You took his hand and guided him upstairs into the room you rented.